Welcome in to the Belly Up Sports NASCAR Midseason Super Show. We are talking all things NASCAR. We'll do a little bit of recapping of the first half of the season and a whole bunch of previewing for what's ahead as well. I'm Vince Stover, and I am joined to my left by Kaleb McChesney. I'm making sure I'm doing my directions correctly. Kaleb McChesney, the most recent graduate in the group, and part of Belly Up Sports, of course, as well. And to my right is Chris Prince. He is the Belly Up racing head, and both of these gentlemen write articles on bellyupsports.com, and as well as jumping on shows such as the Sports Stove podcast and talking about NASCAR as well. So welcome, guys. How you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm great. Kaleb, how about you, man? You're the one you're the one's living free right now, man, out of school.
No, seriously, yeah. Just recently entered the adult world, so we'll see if that's great or terrifying. Give me a little bit to adjust for sure. But
yeah, the transfer portal of life is what you're in right now.
Except nobody's paying millions of dollars to go play football for him.
Yep.
You never know, man. You never know. But we're here to talk about NASCAR tonight. And let's start with the news of the week. Of course, the All-Star break and the All-Star race this weekend was what it was. And the reality is no one's talking about the race at all. Everyone's talking about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. waiting around for Kyle Busch. Of course, he couldn't go anywhere, but waiting around for Kyle Busch and doing something about it. So let's start off with Chris, your reaction to the fight, the scuffle, and the aftermath with the massive fine Ricky Stenhouse got.
Not surprised. I think once Ricky said he was hanging out, I mean, like you said, he couldn't go anywhere, but once he said he was going to hang out, I had a feeling something was going to go down for sure, especially with it being the All-Star race. But yeah, the fines, I mean, a little excessive, but at the same time, it is NASCAR, and I think you come to expect that with stuff like this because that's just they do what they want. Ricky kind of touched on it in one of his interviews I saw. He said you kind of expect it when NASCAR is their own rule maker and the judge, jury, and executioner, in other words. So, but yeah, I wasn't surprised.
All right, Kaleb, your take on the fight as a whole and the aftermath.
Yeah. So, does anybody know who actually won the race? I think I've missed I've missed that throughout the course of this week. Yeah. I have kind of the consensus take on the fight as everybody else does. Was Ricky what he did poor racing etiquette? A little bit. Was it something that Kyle Busch would have done 10, 15 years ago? Probably. Did Ricky deserve to get wrecked? No. But at the same time, when you go and you wait behind the hauler and you're waiting for a fight to happen and you have that conversation, and it looked like Kyle Busch was about to say something that really was about to de-escalate the situation after they went back and forth. And then Ricky tells him, go watch the replay. And Kyle Busch says, I don't believe that. But, and as soon as he drops the but, Ricky comes in and, kind of telegraphs that punch. Just doesn't quite hit as well as it should have. And then a whole scuffle breaks down. As you said pre-show, Vince, your dad said that he wouldn't jump into that fight as Ricky's dad did and took a mean punch from Kyle Busch.
He did.
But yeah, it's really unfortunate that Ricky got fined as bad as he did, knowing just how much money NASCAR is going to make from promoting this fight for the next year and a half, 2 years. With every time they're promoting a race, and damn sure the next time they promote a race for North Wilkesboro, they're not going to be showing Joey Logano doing a burnout at the start and finish line for more than 2 seconds. What are they going to show? That gigantic scuffle in the back. So
I want to hit on a couple things on this fight.
As far as future repercussions, I'm not sure that Ricky will hold true to what he said that he was going to do in Charlotte this week. Whether it would matter or not, I'm not sure. They probably will end up side by side at some point. This is kind of how the racing gods go. They'll end up on the truck and driver intros next to each other, and they'll have a nice coup de grace, come to Jesus moment. But yeah. It was certainly the most interesting part of the night, which is both entertaining and disappointing because the racing I thought was actually pretty good.
they're going to run side by side at some point because we know they'll be back there at 28th and 29th at some point in the race, and and everybody will be watching. I want to hit on a couple of things though in the whole scuffle. First of all, Kyle Busch punches Richard Stenhouse, Ricky's dad. Now, I mentioned this on my show that it's not like they're super far away in age. Kyle is kind of old. But how do we feel about Busch punching Stenhouse's dad? Because from what I saw, Stenhouse's dad, of course, grabbed and pushed Kyle. Did not swing. From what I saw, did not swing at Kyle. And I'm surprised that Kyle didn't get in any trouble for the interaction he had with Stenhouse's dad. Granted, he's the driver. He should be the one that's protected over someone that's not, not there for the race. So I guess there's that. But I have a problem with Kyle Busch punching Richard Stenhouse and there being zero consequence for it.
Yeah, I mean, I probably couldn't pull it up now, but I feel like I saw a different angle where he did land like an abdomen shot. But again, I probably couldn't find that video now to show you if my life depended on it. But definitely, I think it kind of falls back into the same thing where you saw, I think it was the Eagles game back in the NFL where the security guard got involved with the football game.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the same concept. Like you said, you got to protect the athlete more so in that point than you do the spectators or even the family members of a driver, in my opinion.
And what about, is it good? Is it good for the sport? Me and Dad talked about this last night on the show where we talked about hockey has fights. It's part of hockey. It is what it is. You know it, you expect it, all that kind of stuff. Football, weak fights, they all wearing helmets. Baseball usually is really boring fights. Basketball, occasionally you have a spicy basketball fight, but usually not so much. I thought this was a good thing for the sport because of the attention it draws. Kaleb, do you think it's a good thing for the sport that they have this fight?
Yes and no. I mean, this is like the only time that NASCAR gets on ESPN Sports Center top 10 highlights, unless there's a photo finish, which we've been blessed with a couple this season already.
Right.
But no, in the sense of it, just nobody wants to see fighting really when it comes down. I mean, of course, we want to see it as fans, but like the dysfunction can get out of hand at the locker. I don't want to say the locker room because it's not a locker room, but like just kind of the driver mind state can get a little muggy. You don't want to see this turn into something bigger as time goes on. Like we don't want to see Kyle and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just going at it every single week. Like at some point we get sick of it and we'd be like, okay, just black flag them both. Like get them out of here. We're over it. So I think in the short run, for sure, as long as this doesn't turn into something outrageous and stupid, because at the end of the day, neither of these guys are really running for wins right now. Not to kind of contradict myself what I wrote this week, but yeah, so you just hope it doesn't turn into something more and they just kind of use this as a marketing tool. But at the same time, I really hate that Ricky got fined as bad as he did for it when NASCAR is going to use this for their benefit largely. So it's a balance. Yeah,
Chris, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the same. My answer would be the same as Caleb's in that sense, but it's in another sense. Dale Jr., you might have saw something where he tweeted out about the fight in the Daytona 500, the very first televised one. I can't remember the year for some reason. I'm blanking. Each of those drivers got fined for their process and involvement in that fight. And then NASCAR's went on to use that as an advertisement for the next 70 years of the sport, pretty much. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, like Kaleb said, yeah, it gets us some publicity. Is it good or bad publicity? I guess that's kind of left to you to decide. But any publicity kind of helps the sport grow in a sense because it brings eyes on it. So,
yeah, NASCAR people are still talking about tires and short track packages, but the world is talking about NASCAR, and It's not about tires and short track packages. And I think that's a good thing personally. I think had they aired it on network television, it would have been a whole lot better. But that's a whole nother argument for a whole nother day. That being said, does it affect the rest of the season? I don't think so. Again, now if this was like, I don't know, let's say Byron and Bubba Wallace I think it's a whole different story. I think it means a lot more in a positive way for the sport, because now you got this rivalry of guys that are actually competitive. Stenhouse, love him or hate him, he's not a threat on the track. So
no, he's got 3 career Cup Series wins, and Kyle Busch had 3 last year in the first year with his new team.
Yeah.
Right. so it's kind of, it takes a little bit of the luster.
Catch my drift.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of the luster away from it, because I think rivalries are great. I think when there's 2 guys on the track that don't like each other and they are competitive, that is fun. And you get into this, though, it's news for now, but honestly, I think after the race starts this weekend, I think we'll be talking about something totally different. And until next year's All-Star race, probably won't talk unless Stenhouse wins, or unless Kyle Busch wins and says something on the mic or something like that happens. I think this story becomes moot right after the race starts this weekend at the very least. So we'll see what it carries over, if at all. And we'll see how it affects the season as well. And it would be great, though, if they do get side by side, line up together. What I mentioned was, anyways, I think it'd be great if their pit boxes are next to each other this week. I think that would be phenomenal. I would guess that that's not going to happen. I'm sure.
No, they might use their pick to purposely be as far away from them as possible, one side or the other.
Yeah. So there goes all the fun and drama for this week. But something else will pop up this week. We'll have plenty to talk about, I think, after this we're racing Charlotte this weekend. Let's talk a little bit about the season so far and where we are in the season. You mentioned it earlier, Kaleb. We have had and been blessed with photo finishes multiple times throughout this season. Not every race has been great, but a lot of the finishes have been really good at the very least, which honestly makes or breaks a race at the end of the day as well. But let's start with the individuals and the drivers. We've talked about it throughout the year already. Hendrick and Joe Gibbs are kind of dominating the season for the most part. And the top 2 drivers, I think at least, are racing for those teams. But who do you think has been the best driver so far this year? And I know you can look at points, you can look at wins, you can look at top 5s or top 10s. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. But Chris, let's start with you. The best driver you think so far this season?
So, I mean, just playing out, I think it's kind of a common pick. Like you said, when they drive for Hendrick and JGR, my choice is Kyle Larson. I mean, me and Kaleb did a midseason awards type pick or piece last week, and when I was looking it up, he's statistically already doing better than his championship season in 2021 average finish wise, and he's already won 7 stages this year, one more, and he's won the same amount that he won all of last year combined. So I feel like there's a little more consistency maybe there. I mean, I don't know for sure because I'm not behind the scenes, but he just seems like it's more complete. He's not going all out. He's settling for those, those top 5, top 10 finishes instead of, hitting the wall or, for a 5th place or a 6th place and finishing 33rd or 34th. So I like what Kyle's doing this year. And plus, it's Kyle Larson. Some would argue he's one of the best drivers in motorsports right now. Right. So that would be my pick. And I know that's kind of a gimme option there, but honestly, he had a good season his championship year. So to see statistically he's finishing better already, that's kind of scary.
All right, Kaleb, what about you?
Yeah, so Chris, I know that I've been giving you a lot of crap for picking the easy picks every single week or every single time a question comes up. But when it comes to the best driver, there's really only 2 options. And it's really ironic that you stuck with Kyle Larson when you were the second pick when we wrote this, and I took the other guy with the first one. My pick, ironically, as I wear my Bowman merch here, is the number 11 of Danny Hamlin in the Joe Gibbs Racing. I know that I pretty much, on like one of the first NASCAR shows I did last year at the championship season, I was violently not on the side of Denny Hamlin, and the tune has certainly changed. I mean, this year all the short breaks are going his way. He's staying out of trouble. He is right there with Larson, better or worse, in every single metric. He's 0.1 average finish behind Kyle Larson. He has 3 wins versus Kyle Larson's 2. He's got 5 top 5s versus Larson's 6. They have the same amount of top 10s, and in top 20s, Denny Hamlin's 1 point better. Denny's led in just about every race that they've run this year, besides 1 or 2. It's hard to really see that and not pick him. And obviously the question is, well, is he going to do it? But the season gets close and it's the playoffs and they got a race for the championship. I know he was 1 spot out of it when in Martinsville, but I don't know. I kind of want to call a shot here and say it's the year that he finally gets that done. But certainly through the halfway point of the year, it's either Larson or it's Hamlin, or you really got to convince me one way or the other, because these are the 2 guys who are just running the front of the field every single race.
Yeah, I think it's 1A, 1B, no matter how you line it up. The one thing, Hamlin, he's led 607 laps, which is only 32 less than Larson. So he's right there in laps led. Larson has 2 DNFs this year. Hamlin has 1. That's not always.
Thanks, John Hunter, Nemechek.
Of course. and you guys listed everything else. I'm going to say Hamlin for best driver so far. I think the 3 wins over the 2 wins is kind of what gives him the nod. But I don't think it's a wrong answer if you say Larson by any stretch of the imagination as well. Is Denny Hamlin one of the most respected veterans? Because I feel like if you go back even 3 years ago, you'd have more people who didn't like Hamlin. And now it seems like he is kind of that veteran voice there in the garage. And there's a few other guys. I think Truex is one of those guys too. But it seems like Hamlin has kind of stepped into this role of, hey, I've been around. I've seen a lot of things. He now owns as well. And it seems like everyone kind of looks to Denny to be the voice for the drivers right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I think he's embraced that in a sense, but I think I was telling my wife the other day, he embraces being the villain almost in a sense for the fans too.
Right.
And that's good for the sport. So yeah, it's definitely changed. Does that have something to do maybe with other guys retiring and such? Yeah, I think so. But Denny's definitely become more respected by the drivers. I feel like he's not, shunned as much. Now the fans, obviously, like I said, they have a different.
The fans are going to be the fans, man. I mean,
exactly. But yeah, I like what Denny is doing. Basically, becoming a part owner in a team. He's investing in the future of the sport, even after he, does retire from driving.
All right, let's talk about biggest disappointments. I think Larson and Hamlin's an easy conversation. Biggest disappointments might be also, but let's start with Kaleb on this one. The driver you think has been the biggest disappointment so far this season?
It's really easy to go with the hot pick and say Christopher Bell. That's not who I meant to say. That was actually my pick. I meant to say Kyle Busch. Really disappointing, but buried the lead there. But Christopher Bell is my pick for sure. Sure, he's got the win in Phoenix, but God, it's been a brutal month of April. May wasn't much better. He's got 1 top 10 in the last 2 months. I think it was a P6 at Kansas. Every time else, he either got into a wreck or he just fell behind the 8 ball and couldn't get back. The 20 car has been absolutely miserable, and it's a far cry from what he's done the last 2 years, making the championship 4 back-to-back years. He's got all the talent in the world. Joe Gibbs is an amazing organization. All the tools that he would ever need, and it's just not coming together for that 20 car. I'm not sure what it needs. I'm not sure what that team needs. But it's brutal. But I'd look towards the next couple of races for him to figure it out. Not this week, because he's got 1 top 10 in the last 3 races here at Charlotte, but down the line, like a Loudon, where he's usually really, really good at, a lot of those short tracks, I think that would probably be his spot to shine. But God, through the first half of the year, I don't think there's anybody more disappointed in Christopher Bell than me. He's P15 right now in points. He's got the win, just 2 other top 5s and 5 other top 10s. 125 laps led. Average finish is just under 17.5. It's not what you want out of a Power 5 kind of drive, or one of those teams that, Hendrick and JGR. I think he's pretty clearly the weakest link of all of them. And I say that as Alex Bowman fan, so feel free to shun me. as you will. But at least Bowman's hitting the top tens, and he's ninth in points. What's Christopher Bell done the last couple of months?
How many races does Bell have to figure it out? I've put the number at 5. I give him 5 more races, and after that, I write him off for the year.
I don't know.
I mean, obviously, he's got the 1 win, so he's got a shot
the playoffs for sure.
Yeah.
I'd probably give him until the start of August.
Okay.
To give him the next couple of months, and you get the 2-week break for the Olympics this year.
Right.
That's going to be huge for a lot of people, a lot of drivers to just kind of reset. A lot of guys who might be out of it might be able to stay home and kind of not only rewire their brain a little bit, but rewire the team to put themselves in a better position for upcoming tracks. But no, I'd give him until the end of August or until the beginning of August after the Olympics is over, and we'll see what that break kind of does for him.
I like it. Chris, biggest disappointment this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think we went with similar picks in our piece, like I said, but you could really go with 2 of the Penske drivers, in my opinion, Logano or Cindric. I think Cindric's the easy choice there because it is his 3rd year, and he's done nothing since winning that Daytona 500. I mean, right now he's averaging roughly around a 23rd place finish.
My only like question for you, Chris, not to jump in, but when you say Austin Cindric is the most disappointing, my only question back would be, how is he disappointing when this is basically what he's been the last 3 years?
Well, yeah,
you know
that's right. I mean, I think it's the fact that 2 car is a championship caliber car, and his teammates have both won championships in back-to-back seasons. And I know a sophomore slump happens in sports, don't get me wrong, but this is the 3rd year you expect something to change this year if it's going to change, and it just hasn't.
It looked like it early, though, didn't it? I mean, the first maybe 3 races, it looked like maybe he was going to be someone that can consistently run towards the top, be around.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, though, those are mostly drafting style tracks, too, which is where he's had his success.
Yeah.
Besides a road course, I mean, he's a really good road racer. He's a really good driver, I feel like, too. He's an Xfinity Series champ. He's got like 13 career wins, I think, in the Xfinity Series when I looked it up. But he's just not put it together in the Cup Series, and that I think is what's a little disappointing because people expected more. He's coming in to take over the 2 car for Brad Keselowski. Now, those are high expectations because Brad did win a championship in that car. But again, I think you could go with him or Logano because what's Logano done besides win the All-Star race, and nobody even cares that he did that. I mean, and he's not finished in the top 10 for the last like 5 races. So
yeah.
I think those 2 Penske drivers easily could be in contention for that.
Yeah, and I think Logano and Bell are both guys that can turn it around. So you're talking about biggest disappointment. I don't think you've lost hope necessarily in them yet. But I've got Bell as my answer, but I put a second one because I figured somebody else would say Bell. And so my second option was Austin Dillon. Now, again, where's the expectation with him?
I got, same question. What were you expecting out of that 3 car?
Yeah, but 1 top 10, 0 stage wins, 0 laps led. It's just the time. It's just time to move on. The number 3 car should have somebody in it who can drive and should have someone in it who can compete. And I know it's been a long time since the 3 has been consistent, but my goodness, it's time for us to see something different in that car. And man, I just, I mean, he's going to be running that team probably at some point, but
that's a scary thought.
It isn't, but it's time. And I just think it's disappointing to see that car continue just to be nothing in the sport. And it should not be. Let's talk about surprise drivers. And my thought when I put this topic in was positive, but I guess you could have a negative surprise also. So Chris, let's start with you, a surprise driver here in the first half of the season.
Okay, I'm probably going to steal Kaleb's, but Noah Gragson. That one's crazy to me, in my opinion, because SHR came in with such low expectations. Nobody, I feel like, saw this team. I mean, there might have been a few people out there just throwing out, things into the wind to see if they stick, but I feel like nobody really saw, especially the 10 car, competing like they did. I mean, you could go the other way with Chase Briscoe, which I did in our piece, but Chase Briscoe, and he hasn't put on quite the performance that Noah has, in my opinion. I think that's been the biggest surprise there. That would be an obvious kind of pick, but mine, believe it or not, actual pick is Denny Hamlin. And I don't think it's due to the fact of it being Denny Hamlin. He seems different this year. Denny's got it put together a little earlier, in my opinion. The thing with that is, I don't know if he can continue it into the playoffs. Do you worry about getting too hot, too warm? I think that's my thing. But I like what I've seen out of Denny this year compared to last year. It's like Kaleb said, you could call the shot and say that this very well might be the year that Denny pulls it off.
I like it. Kaleb, your surprise driver.
I'm going to take a whole group of them here. I'm going to take the top 3 cars in Stewart-Haas Racing, because never have I ever predicted that Stewart-Haas would be the best top-down Ford team in the entire Cup Series for the better part of the first half. Now I think RFK is kind of past them at this point. Brad got the win. Buescher is this close. But not only that, but that Stewart-Haas could very well be selling all their charters by the end of the season. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But just through all the turmoil that organization is going through. I mean, you heard Harvick after coming out of the Hendrick practice car, and he's talking about, oh, yeah, well, it was nice to see my boss 2 times in 2 weeks, or whatever he had said. So, no, I'll take the top 2 Stewart-Haas cars at the very least between Briscoe and Gragson, because everybody thought Gragson was done when he got kicked out of that 42. And Briscoe obviously running right there, and then Barry comes around every now and again. It looks pretty good for the 4, the 14, and the 10. The 41, I mean, Ryan Preece, I mean, it seems like his skill is dodging death every time his car goes into airborne or hits a wall. But no, Stewart-Haas for sure gets a big surprise out of me.
Yeah, Gragson was my first pick again. I figured he'd get brought up. Michael McDowell's another one. 4 top 10s. He's led 73 laps. He shoulda, coulda, woulda had a win as well. He's got a stage win. It's just been, again, he's 23rd in the points, so he's not been great, obviously, this year. But it seems like we've seen Michael McDowell more towards the front than we were expecting this year. On tracks that we probably weren't expecting this year as well. And so I think McDowell has had a surprisingly good season. And then I think on the negative surprise of things, the rookies as a whole, John Hunter Nemechek, really there hasn't been a whole – there's been signs and flashes, but not a whole lot.
Oh, no, his biggest noteworthy moment was ruining Toyota's whole strategy at Talladega and just taking out like 3 or 4 really good cars.
Yeah, when they were coming. Hocevar is another one where you just kind of like, there was some expectation that has not been met yet. I think even for him. So, but I've been really impressed with Gragson. And well, let's just go ahead and talk about Stewart-Haas a little bit since you brought him up too. I think that Gragson has earned his spot, whether it's whoever buys out Stewart-Haas or if he's just becomes a free agent. I think there are teams now that would take Noah Gragson in a heartbeat, whereas maybe coming into this year, there weren't quite as many options for him as well. But Stewart-Haas, I mean, the latest report today is they're going to sell all 4 charters. And that's not official, but that being said, I mean, the talk was their contract's up with Ford anyhow. So we're talking about this charter could be moving. Now you're looking at who knows where it goes, what teams pick up charters and where they go with them. And, you know, Junior talked about, he's hearing the price right now. It's about 25 to 30 million. And you're looking at, I don't know what you get with this sale as a whole, but you lose Tony Stewart and you then you throw into uncertainty for some guys like Chase Briscoe and Noah Gragson and Josh Berry. I'm not sure what Preece's standing is at the rest of NASCAR, but
I'll do you one better though, Vince, there to kind of play devil's advocate. Do you lose Tony though? Oh, that's been the biggest thing. A lot of people have been critiquing him. He's not there like he was when he first started the team. But, I mean, he was driving for the team then too.
Right.
I understand that, but he's still not at the track every week like he used to be. So do you really lose that presence? I mean, and then the other problem is I've seen, does the sale of 4 charters like that devalue them in a sense almost? Like the shocking, just, quick sell like that, does it throw that wrench into the plan?
I think I want to comment on your Tony Stewart thought, because I think as it stands currently, you're not losing much, but I think down the road is where you lose it. Because I think as he's finishing out or doing some things right now in drag racing and things like that, he's planning on starting a family and all these kind of things. But here in the next, I would say 2 or 3 years, he's going to start slowing down with his extracurriculars and have more time to focus in on the things he's invested in. And I think that's where you lose out on Tony Stewart, is down the road, versus losing much right now. Kaleb, is there a chance, Junior has talked about wanting to own a Cup car, and with the price and everything right now, there's no way he's going to do it. But I kind of feel like it's a setup for him trying to weasel his way into a Cup team at some point. Does the sale of SHR open the doors for Junior Motorsports to get into the Cup?
No, it certainly does. And I think Chris knows why I smirked a little bit when you asked me. So there's a report out there today or yesterday that the newest proposal for NASCAR and the teams is that they might bump down the maximum amount of cars for teams from 4 to 3. So the 4 team cars, the Stewart Haas's of the world, if they stuck around, which I think was pretty clear that they're not. HMS would have to get rid of somebody. Joe Gibbs would have to get rid of somebody. So there's certainly a lot of options there for Junior to come in and take 1 or 2 cars, especially if HMS has to get rid of Alex Bowman, because let's just be clear, as much as it pains me and kills me to say it, he is the 4th guy on the hierarchy. I mean, as he put it himself, he considers himself the village idiot of the 4. So that already having a established relationship with Dale Jr., you could bring back the 88 car. You could put Bowman right in there, and Junior has a guy right there that is capable of winning races in the Cup Series and making playoff pushes. Whether he's a championship contender or not, I'm not going to speculate, obviously. But so there's an easy entry there with that, if that is to be the case, where they jump down from 4 cars to 3. And then obviously if he wants to get in with Gragson, who he has a relationship with, I believe, Josh Berry, who I believe drove for Junior Motorsports as well, it makes it real easy for him to come in and pick up a car or 2.
Interesting. Chris, any thoughts on that? Junior possibly sneaking in?
Yeah, Junior could, and this would be the time if he's going to. I think this would be the great. Now, something me and Kaleb, I think, have talked about too. If he doesn't go out and purchase a charter on his own, what if he gets involved with a team like JTG?
Oh, yeah.
Because reports are that Kroger is leaving. They're taking Kroger and going over to Joe Gibbs. That would bring in, Junior's got all kinds of sponsorship pull, even with his Xfinity team. Right. I feel like that solves that problem right away, sponsorship money. And then Junior gets to, have his foot in the door with the Cup Series if he doesn't want to go ahead and buy a charter outright. But Kaleb's news today, like I said, that's plenty of opportunity. He could go with Bowman. He could go with a Gragson, a Berry, even a Martin Truex Jr. Him and Martin are still buddies, because I think you go and kind of you expel the older guys at JGR at that point. I think Denny would wind up going and racing. Kaleb said it for himself at 2311 when we talked about it. And then I think that would leave Martin out the door if he still wanted to race. He could either ride off into the sunset or he could come back for a year and race for Junior.
Yeah. Boy, that'd be interesting. What are they? A silly season is upon us.
No, it started early when McDowell went and signed with Spire.
Yeah. So it's going to be exciting to see.
Another guy for Corey LaJoie to get outraced by.
Oh my goodness. All right. Let's move on. Best race of the year is Kansas, right? Do we need to talk about that?
It's that or Atlanta.
Yeah, that's the only 2 choices in my opinion.
I think the Atlanta finish. Yeah, Atlanta
Yeah.
finish was great, but I think the Kansas race as a whole was better as well. We've had some really fun finishes, really fun finishes this year, and it's neat to see kind of how that's shaping up a little bit. I'm interested to see how the second half of the regular season goes with these. How if we stay close, we've seen Ford get better. We've seen Keselowski. You mentioned that earlier. RFK has looked really, really solid these last several weeks as well. So there's plenty to come with that. Has there been a the way I'm wording it, most dissatisfying race this season where you just sat there and thought, I just wasted a few hours of my life?
For me, Richmond on Easter Day felt like I was punching myself in the groin repeatedly. So that was awesome.
Yeah,
really loved slugging through that one.
Yeah, those have been kind of disappointing. I could even go one with you further where I was hopeful for the All-Star race. I liked a little bit of what I saw, but at the same time, like, that kind of disappointed me because the hype around the different tires and all of that they put on it kind of let you down when you sat there and watched it. But if a points-paying race goes there, I might be interested at that point, But yeah, I'm with Kaleb. The short track like Richmond, Martinsville wasn't even that pleasurable for me to watch. It was,
What, you didn't like the 1-2-3 Hendrick finish with my village idiot finishing 8th?
I like the 1-2-3 Hendrick finish, but everything else is a little boring about
it. Now, I've been fortunate. The less satisfying races this year I've listened to versus watched.
Oh, it probably sounds a whole lot better on the radio.
Yeah, the radio broadcast is great, man. I mean, it is just lively, and this race is going on, and they're competing for this position, and then you get to the next day, and everybody's talking about how boring the race was. I was going, man, it sounded fun on the radio, but good. Congrats and shout out to the MRN people. They've been doing a great job this year. Listen, Hendrick and Joe Gibbs Racing have dominated the season. Is that going to continue through the rest of the year, or are we seeing RFK or someone else come into the conversation now where it's not going to be this just complete and utter domination by Hendrick and Gibbs?
Well, I mean, I would like to see Hendrick get a 4th win. I mean, no big deal, but no, the Fords are starting to pick up. I mean, you see the 2311 cars running really, really well every single week. I don't think that it's going to, I said from the beginning, there's going to be one team that's going to take a while to figure out their new car and how to get it up. And Ford was the one. They're starting to a little bit for sure. I think that's going to continue. Tyler Reddick won at a super speedway. Who the hell saw that coming at Talladega? Sure, it was a little Mickey Mouse. He wouldn't have won it without Michael McDowell. Hope he sent him a bouquet of flowers for that. But no, I think that it's going to be a little more mixed. Obviously, the Hendrick and JGR cars are going to be the favorites every single week. It's going to be Larson. It's going to be Denny. It's going to be Truex. It's going to be Byron, Elliott, yada, yada, yada. So, no, I don't think that's going to be domination. I think those are obviously still going to be the favorites for obvious reasons. Those are the best cars, but wouldn't be shocked if Blaney gets a win. If Bubba gets a win, he's my driver to watch the rest of the year. Wouldn't be shocked if Gragson found himself in victory lane at the end of the year. I think it's going to be a little more diverse for sure.
Yeah, I think Kaleb hit it, perfectly there. I think you're going to see a little bit more diversity, but minus the years where Harvick was like up there with those big three, it's kind of always been a Hendrick and Joe Gibbs type of race. But yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit more diversity because the Fords are going to figure it out. And I think Brad's win is what they needed to start that. Do I think it's going to be like total domination sway? No. I think like, you said, you're still going to see Hamlin, you're still going to see Larson, and then you're most likely going to see Byron and Elliott. And then occasionally, I think Bell does rebound, whether it's a little too late for his own good or not. Regardless, I think any of those drivers at both of those stables can come out and win. Even Alex Bowman, he has the
if he would just qualify well, we'd have a win already.
Yeah, but you got guys like Blaney still hasn't got a win. Ross Chastain still hasn't got a win. Keselowski finally got his. Buescher's been so close a couple times. So there's a couple guys that can definitely come up and get wins that I think we expect to get wins at some point. and it would be different than your Gibbs or Hendrick drivers, of course. And there are, I mean, you mentioned Bowman. He hasn't got his win yet, but nobody would be surprised if Bowman wins a race. So, I mean,
top 10 in all but 2 races, man, or top 20 in all but 2 races. Top 10 in all but 5.
Yeah,
he's been legit. If he can drive through the field, but with this car, you can only get up to a certain point before the air just falls out from under you. But if he can start like P4, he has a real shot of winning. It's just you got to put it together for a full weekend. You got to be good on Saturday, and you got to be good on Sunday.
All right, I'm going to give you 2 drivers paired up. All right, so you got to tell me who wins first. Gibbs and Bowman, one of those 2, or Blaney and Logano.
Ooh.
Who wins first?
Ooh, give me the Ford team. Give me Blaney and Logano. Blaney, I mean, he's been one of the best Fords all year. He's kind of like taken a step back from being the best Ford all year because now you got Keselowski in the mix, you got Buescher in the mix. Then they're starting to get hot a little bit. So I'd probably put Blaney within that top 3 in some way, shape, or form. I think he'll get the win. I think he's going to be that guy. So
Chris?
Yeah, I like Blaney, but I'm going to go just for devil's advocate purposes here. I'm going to go with the other option.
Who wins it, though? Who wins it and where?
That's the question, because I think Ty Gibbs is going to shock somebody. If he grabs a win, it's going to be a surprise type of win. Not that he can't win at one of the typical oval tracks, but I could see him winning on a road course or something like that. Kind of just showing a surprise win.
I'm going to say Blaney wins at Iowa. But I think Gibbs can win before that as well. So I'd probably lean towards
Charlotte and Sonoma before.
Yeah, Illinois, right?
Oh, yeah, Gateway. Yeah.
Gateway.
Yeah. So
that could be, and I mean, Ross Chastain has showed speed there before, so that could be another.
Yeah, when he's not, wrecking Elliott and Hamlin getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people need to be wrecked. But if you're not going to throw a punch after you get wrecked, what's the point? Coca-Cola 600 is this weekend, and it's one of my favorite races to watch. It's the only NASCAR track I've actually been to, and I got to sit in the the PepsiCo suite with all you can eat food, all you can eat Pepsi or drink Pepsi.
Where was our invites?
Oh man, this was a long time ago. All right, but man, it was a blast. Anyways, that's coming up this weekend. It's going to be a phenomenal race. It's going to be a lot of fun. There is a little bit of hype coming into it because of the fight this week. But there's also the hype because you got Kyle Larson up in Indianapolis, and there could be some weather issues. Then there's the whole Donald Trump might show up, which could cause some other issues, all these kinds of things going on. And let's not steer into the political realm. But Kyle Larson this weekend, what's the expectation? What is a good outcome for Kyle Larson? Does he have to win for it to be good at one of these places, or is it just finish, top 5 at both places?
I think I guess that depends on who you ask. I think what he's done already is kind of awesome, in my opinion, because he's not an IndyCar guy. But it is Kyle Larson, so I don't think anybody didn't expect him to do decent, at least, but I think he's exceeded the decent term there. He's, shown out a little bit, but I think if he finishes, he competes in the Indy 500, and then he comes down and does the same thing in the Coke 600, everybody's going to talk about it as a success.
God, what a race to pull a double, the longest race in NASCAR. I think if you're going to have a goal and it's less than win both, put together a higher average finish than Kurt and Tony did in their runs. I'm not sure what their average was. I think Kurt finished like 6th, and Tony Stewart was within that top 10 somewhere when he ran it. And then you come back and you put on a good show at the Coke 600. Just have a good average finish, but better than those two if you're going to have a goal. But obviously the ultimate goal is win both and cement yourself as the best race car driver on the planet.
Yeah, I think top 5 in Indianapolis would be incredible. And then I think as long as he doesn't wreck out in the 600, it's a success. Because as long as he does well in Indianapolis, that's all anybody's going to talk about, honestly. And now if he wins both, it'll be crazy. If he wins both, does he become immediately the greatest driver active today?
Yeah,
Oh,
no
yeah.
question. No question.
Absolutely.
Does that immediately vault him into the greatest driver ever conversation?
It's certainly up there. I
But,
mean,
yeah,
you
I
don't
mean,
have the 7 championships that Earnhardt and
right.
Jimmy do,
Johnson,
but
yeah.
it's did Earnhardt and Jimmy Johnson run well at the Indy 500? Did they win it? It's certainly a conversation. You'd certainly probably take up Gordon's mantle for most talented because Jeff Gordon didn't run the Indy 400, 500, but he could. Let me make that clear. Jeff Gordon probably could back in his day.
Yeah, I think easily, like we said, it puts him in the top 5 at the very least. At the very least. I mean, because heck, there's only a few select drivers that have even won a Daytona 500 and the Indy 500. So there's not very much crossover there. There's only been 2 people to do the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 before him. So I think if he's able to win both of those, that easily catapults him up there to the top 5 at the very least.
I agree. All right, let's talk about the Coca-Cola 600. Who do we like this week? I know you dropped your article this morning. You dropped an article as well. But let's talk about through Charlotte this weekend. What are we anticipating, and who do we like? Let's go with who we like to win, and then maybe even a surprise winner for this weekend.
Go ahead, Caleb. I'll let you go first.
All right. So the 2 I picked was Kyle Busch. I think his odds were plus 1,300. And then Chris Buescher, who I think was plus 14, 15, 16, 1,700. Kyle Busch, there's nobody that's been better in this next-gen car. It's finished, I think, top 10. No, I think he wrecked in one, or he ran slow in one. So he was top 10 in 2 of them. And obviously the middle one wasn't great. He has the best average finish of any Cup Series driver in the last 3 races. He looks excellent. RCR, as much as it's inconsistent, it was bad last week. Hopefully it's good this week. Obviously the 1.5 mile package is great for this next-gen car. Kyle Busch, he's kind of fighting the washed-up allegations. There's no way better to do it than pick up a win at the Coke 600, just staying out of trouble, qualify really well. And then the other guy, Chris Buescher, I mean, this close. Every single week something happens to him. And he's just, it's going to come together for him eventually at some point. I think we all kind of figured that he's going to get a win at some point. He won a stage here last year. I think he won stage 2 at the Coke 600 last year. So Charlotte's also very good to him. So I'd definitely go with him. And then a sleeper pick, I'll represent the shirt. He's got an average finish of about 10th here. This could be one of those tracks, but it's 1.5 miles. It looks really good. This was his comeback race last year after he broke his back. Again, hell of a race to come back from a broken back to run the longest race in NASCAR, but he finished like P12 or better. I forget. So no, definitely this is a track that he could get that job done. But the days are counting where I just kind of give up. Like, okay, he's making it on points, and I guess we'll just kind of see what happens.
Bowman's going to win.
Those are the 3: Busch, Buescher, Bowman.
All right, Chris, who do you got?
Yeah, so I went in our picks piece. I went with my favorite driver, Chase Elliott, as my fanboy pick, but he's at plus 1,100. And then an obvious kind of choice is Denny Hamlin. I think safe money is, you can say it's scared money, but safe money is still safe money in my opinion. So you need an easy pick every once in a while.
It's a bold choice after what happened last year, don't you think?
Hey, drama happens in NASCAR races. You watch the
Just hope
All-Star
that
race.
Denny doesn't send him into the fence again.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, but Chase in like 20 career starts. I looked it up. If he's not wrecked or been on the damaged vehicle policy clock, his worst finish I think was like 16th at Charlotte on 20 career starts on the oval. Now I know some of those are all-star races before they move those around and stuff, but still. The last 2 seasons haven't been quite as good, so I can see why his odds are down. Obviously, last year he had the issue with Hamlin, and then the year before that he was involved in an accident. But someone else to keep an eye on that's really historically been good is Martin Truex. I don't think anybody would be surprised if he comes out and leads the last like 100 laps and runs away with the win, because that's what he does, and he seems to do it on big stages like the Coke 600.
I've got William Byron taking the win this week. Gregson is kind of my dark horse pick. Again, he's been sneaky good this year and hanging around up in the top tens. And then for the fun of it, let's throw Ricky Stenhouse out there too. He's angry, he's mad. He's just $75,000 poor.
I looked at it earlier today. Charlotte's one of Ricky's better tracks.
Yeah, one of his better tracks, actually.
Last year and the year before, P7. The year before that, P12. The year before that, P4. So that's 3 top 10s and a P12. This could be a spot for him for sure, as long as he doesn't see that 8 car and see red.
Yeah, he should be motivated. So
this is for my dad.
I love it. All right, here's a question that you guys have argued about all year. Not online, well, not on the shows, but just throughout as well. Nate asks Bubba Wallace, how's he doing this year? He's not paying attention. He doesn't know what's going on. And he obviously hasn't been reading your guys' stuff, your power rankings.
No,
and all that kind of stuff.
I don't appreciate the shade here. But put it simply, Bubba Wallace, P16 in points right now. In 13 starts, he's got 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 20 top 9s. He's led 35 laps, not quite what you want, but an average finish is 17th flat. His highest finish is P4 at Martinsville, believe it or not. So when he's hot, he's hot. The last couple of weeks haven't been great to him. He had 7th at Darlington, but before that, 17th at Kansas, which we all hoped he would do better. He wrecked out at Dover. He wrecked out at Talladega. Thanks again, John Hunter Nemechek, and then P7 at Texas. So Bubba Wallace has been good, not great, but he can certainly put it together. At the start of the season, I still stand by my my criticism of Chris for being so hesitant to put him in the top 10. But now, if he's not in the top 10 right now, I do understand. It's been kind of a fall off for him.
Yeah. He's been, like Kaleb said, good, not great. Yeah, Blaine kind of hit it on the head there. Not great for an average finish, but he's shown a better. I think he's on a career year, if I'm not mistaken, too. Or I read that somewhere. He was maybe. At one point they were talking about he was having a career year. He's been performing better. Wouldn't be surprised. We've said it before just a little bit ago. If he winds up,
this would be second to his average finish to right now. Okay. He needs 2 more top 5s to tie his most, which was last year.
That's crazy. So yeah, I mean he's definitely improved a little bit. I could see him, maybe pit strategy stealing a win or fuel mileage even. That would be something. I don't know if he's going to just drive through the field. Not to say that he won't. I think he's got the type of car, but I think the competition is really stiff in the Cup Series. So it's harder.
The fact that he's sticking around on these short tracks and these road courses, it's showing me a lot.
All right, 3 more things to get to. Let's start with championship pick for the rest of the year. Now we've seen half of the regular season. We got some guys with wins under their belts. We've seen guys flashing excellence and inconsistencies, and we've seen Ford coming on and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to go championship pick, and we're going to do dark horse pick, but we're going to start with championship pick. So who you actually think is going to win the championship this year? Kaleb, let's start with you.
Stick with the gut. Denny Hamlin. I think it's it. Yeah, he looked great race in, race out. He's running at the front every single race. 1 DNF only. God, I mean, that 11 car just looks fast every single week. There's not a week where they don't have it. And even when they don't have it, they're finishing in the top half. He looks excellent. I think Hamlin is clear cut. Not clear cut because Larson's there. But again, it's a 2-man race, and I like the consistency I'm seeing out of Denny. And Larson's been known to take more risks and be a little more aggressive, which can get him into trouble. So when the line is that thin, I'll go with the gut. I'll stick with the 11 car, Denny Hamlin. He'll get his first. His dad will be able to crack open that cigar Michael Jordan gave him when Denny eventually wins that championship. So I think it's the 11 car.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, I'm with Kaleb. You got to stick with your gut on that. I'm going to ride with Larson on this one. Like I said, I think he had a crazy good season when he came back and won his championship in 21. And he's already, I know it's not much better, but statistically his average finish is a little better, showing me that I think he grabs, especially if he does good this weekend, at the Indy 500. He could ride that momentum into the second half of the season in NASCAR, and I think he's going to easily be there with Hamlin competing for the championship.
Larson's the favorite currently at plus 380. Byron and Hamlin are both at plus 450. I'm going Hamlin as well. It just seems like everything is lining up for him. I mean, they got the pit stuff figured out. They're a better team. He's still the same Denny Hamlin, but they're a better team this year. And so that's where I go as well. I did not pick him to start the year. But it's so impressive. And again, Larson has been impressive
at the start of the year.
Yes.
I picked Christopher Bell. That's the only reason I remember.
Oh.
But that being said I mean, Larson, Hamlin, if it comes down and it's a Hendrick or a Joe Gibbs racing team, we won't be surprised, really, probably no matter who it is at that point. And of course, if a Ford wins for the third year in a row, we'll say, well, of course we should have known that. But I'm going Hamlin as well. All right, let's go dark horse picks. So guys that are not Byron, Larson, Hamlin.
Take out the top two teams. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Chris, let's start with you for the dark horse pick.
Dark horse pick. I'm going to ride actually with Caleb's guy to watch, Bubba. I like Bubba's potential. I really do. Especially if you got to take me away from a JGR or a Hendrick car, I'm going to ride with the closest thing, and that I feel like is a 2311 car. And you could go with Tyler Reddick, but he's kind of like I feel like a given. But Bubba right now is being slept on, so I like his potential. But you could also go, if you did want to go with a slower JGR car, I could see Christopher Bell doing what he's done before and winning late in the playoffs and somehow securing his way into the championship for again.
Bell is currently the third best odds at plus
Really?
900. Him and Elliott are both at plus 900. So I think
you're on DraftKings right now looking at
that was on DraftKings. Yeah.
Jesus.
So I think that's his past that's playing into that.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Bubba, who's at plus 4,000. So Blaine was talking about DraftKings.
You feel really good about that, Chris? You put some money down on it.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't. I don't think my wife would let me spend that money though.
You could put $5 on plus 4,000.
Make a solid 200.
Yep.
All right, dark horse, Kaleb, who you got?
Listen, man, I can never criticize Chris for not picking Bubba Wallace ever again. Winning a championship. Well, he hasn't really been in that top 5 all that often, but listen, props to you. I'll go with number 17, Chris Buescher. Again, this close. Week in, week out. He's this close. Ford's putting it together. That RFK team is looking really, really good.
Yeah.
Buescher got hot late last year. He was kind of I don't want to say Cinderella kind of thing, because that was Michael McDowell before he got booted out in the first round. Because again, we all understand Michael McDowell is a nice guy, but it's kind of a blockhead. I don't think he's that good of a race car driver. That's why he's going to run to Spire, where he looks good racing against Corey LaJoie. Anyways, Chris Buescher in that 17, he's going to rack off a couple of wins here. Wouldn't be shocked if it's next week. Wouldn't be shocked if it's any of the races coming up. He's kind of a do-it-all kind of driver. Wouldn't be shocked if it's him winning that championship, or his teammate Brad Keselowski. I don't think it'll be a Penske car at the very least.
Yeah, I think Ford is the way I lean for dark horse, just because of what we've seen the last few years. Buescher's my pick too. He's plus 2,800. So he's my pick as well. Keselowski's at plus 1,800. So I mean, you got some options if you're looking to sprinkle, as my buddy says, some pizza money on it. You got some options there. Alex Bowman at plus 5,000. I mean, there's. Can
I get a win first?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're gonna have to. Honestly, you're gonna have to be in that conversation, I think. But there's some good options out there for dark horse picks, and of course, some great options for front runners as well. The last thing that I want your guys' picks on is something I didn't give this to you pre-show. So hopefully it doesn't take you too long to think about it, but most popular driver, it's been Chase Elliott. I'm wondering if this year that shifts elsewhere. No, both of you are shaking.
There hasn't been that big personality to come take those.
What if Larson wins the 600 and the 500 this weekend?
I mean, it'd certainly be close. I mean, but
it draws more
NASCAR fans. with NASCAR fans, they love themselves some Chase Elliott, man. It'd be hard. I've
Yeah,
heard
it's,
Kyle Busch has come close in recent years.
Yeah.
But
Ugh, I could
I
never
don't
think
know.
vote for
There's
Kyle Busch.
Hamlin,
still
if
too
I'm
many
not
Chase flags in the
mistaken.
stands. There's still too many Chase flags in the stands.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not just saying that as a Chase Elliott fan. Obviously, it's been proven over the last so many years. It's either been an Elliott or an Earnhardt, and I don't see that changing. Just like Kaleb said, the personality just hasn't been there. Now Hamlin came. I think Hamlin or Ross Chastain one have recently came close within the last couple of years, but even then, Chase has still pulled it out. So I think it's still going to stay with Chase Elliott.
Yeah, I think Hamlin and Larson are the two guys that could steal it. Hamlin just because he's in front of people.
Can you imagine Hamlin being simultaneously the most hated driver and the most popular driver?
Yeah,
It'd be crazy.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
wins the championship. Coincidentally, the year imagine that he wins the championship and then goes on to.
He might just retire right there.
I think he would.
If he was smart, yeah. Oh man. All right, so we got an exciting season ahead. We still got plenty of races left, and plenty of opportunity to get on board with some of these guys as well. And Chris and Kaleb each come on my show on Wednesday nights around. They come on towards the end of the show. The show's at 8:00, and we talk NASCAR at the end of each episode as well. So make sure you tune into that. That's here on the Belly Up YouTube page. You can always find old episodes wherever you get podcasts and on the Sports Stove YouTube page as well. Both of these guys are active in Belly Up, and so they're writing stuff and getting stuff on bellyupsports.com. Chris, tell the people where they can find you at and where they can find your content at.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Facebook. I have my own NASCAR page. It's NASCAR for everyone, basically. I started it now it's been a while now. I've lost track of time anyway. But yeah, NASCAR, the number 4, and then every and the number 1 is my Twitter handle, or you can just find my personal one on there.
And you're putting out stuff every week. Is I always forget because you both are putting out things and you're putting out things together too. But what day of the week typically is your stuff dropping, Chris?
Yeah, I try to drop my power rankings. I shoot to drop them on Tuesday. It's been more like a Wednesday, Thursday thing here lately, which has kind of been that way with my.
It's okay. You can let me have Tuesday.
So yeah, I'm posting those power rankings typically, middle of the week, each week after every points paying race. Didn't do one this week because of the All-Star race, but we'll be back next week.
Kaleb, you've got some free time on your hands now that you're not in the books studying. So I'm guessing an article every day coming out right now.
No, seriously, yeah, it's really hard to just get my fingers off the keyboard at this point. I got the 3 up, 3 down every single week. I try to get that out Monday or Tuesday here on Belly Up. 3 drivers that I thought impressed, 3 drivers I thought stunk, didn't meet those expectations. So try to do that every single week. Obviously, skip that because it's the All-Star race. Yeah. Nobody cares who really performed there, obviously, because half of you can't even mention who won the race on Sunday. So you have that. I got my Patriots stuff at Foxborough Beat. That season is coming up in couple of months. Dropped the new episode today talking about the Patriots schedule and how we got absolutely boned by the makers. No bye week till week 14, 2 separate West Coast trips. Give me a break. London trip without a bye week afterwards, by the way. Fantastic stuff. Patriots season at Foxborough Beat. Follow that if you're a Patriots fan or you just want to argue with me all the time. I respond to comments every now and again. And then obviously the weekly picks where me and Chris get together. We look at the odds. Chris takes the favorite, and I try to be a little more creative. So there's always that going on. So a lot of fun stuff. And I will be at New Hampshire Motor Speedway a month from today, I believe. I believe that race is on June 23rd. So Vince, write me down for getting me on before and after Loudon. You'll see a change in my skin tone. One will be like this, and the next one will be like even more red, and it'll be painful. So
you you looking to match the lobster up there in color?
Oh yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're actually gonna grab me out of the stands and give me to the winner.
Hey, that'd be fun. Very good. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove. And again, my podcast drops. We got Sunday night at 8:00 is the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. And then every Wednesday night at 8:00 is the Sports Stove Podcast. My dad joins me for the first part of the show, and then I have a guest come on in the last part to talk NASCAR. And usually it's Chris or Caleb. We got a guy named Josh who jumps on as well. He hosts the Stage Break podcast. Not a part of Belly Up, but a great dude and good show as well. And actually, his episode that drops tomorrow, I was a guest on his show this week. So make sure you check that out as well. Check out everything going on at bellyupsports.com and bellyupfantasysports.com as well. And there's plenty of things going on in the Belly Up world right now as well. Happy birthday, by the way, to Mike, our co-founder from the company. So happy birthday to Mike. He is now 40 years old. He's an old geezer just like me. So so happy birthday to him as well. Caleb, Chris, hey, thanks for doing this and being on, and looking forward to what the rest of the season holds. And we're going to come back at the end of the season to wrap up the season and play back all the picks that we got correct during this program here tonight.
Make sure you do that bracket challenge coming up.
Yes, bracket challenge coming up here in just a couple of days. We'll open up the Denny Hamlin bracket challenge, and next year we get to do it from NASCAR as well. And my goodness, it's going to be. We'll talk about that later, but that's going to be fun. We need to remember to talk about that. Tune into the Sports Stove podcast on Wednesday night. We'll talk about that. There's some good stuff with that too. So, anyways, all right, guys. Denny Hamlin. Who did you say? Larson? Did you pick Larson? Yeah.
Yep.
Larson, and then of course we all know that at the end of the day it's going to be Michael McDowell that wins the championship.
I'd be so pissed.
All right. Well, like I said, hang out with Belly Up. There's all kinds of other shows going on. So make sure you subscribe to the Belly Up YouTube channel as well. And thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Belly Up Sports NASCAR Midseason Super Show. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go racing.